became the most visible sign of calamity and of the fact that the nation's existence now rested on shaky ground. It was now vulnerable and in danger. The breach had been made, and the destruction, though limited, had begun. So the ruined heap of fallen bricks was a sign, I said, not just of what had happened, but of what would happen if the nation didn't change its course. Exactly, a sign of collapse. The collapse of building, the collapse of a kingdom, and then of a civilization. He asked me for the seal, and then, lifting it up, he began to explain its meaning. The third harbinger, enemies entered the land and caused destruction. The destruction leaves the nation traumatized, but the scope and the duration of that destruction are limited. The most visible signs of the attack is the ruined heaps of fallen bricks, stone, and rubble, where once that stood a building. The bricks have fallen. The third harbinger, the fallen bricks, ground zero. As the dust of September 11 settled on New York City, people emerged to survey the damage. The World Trade Center had collapsed into a colossal heap of ruins. As Americans watched it on their television sets and computer screens, the image of the colossal ruin heap at ground zero became the most visible and identifier sign of what had happened. A strange image, several stories high, surreal and haunting. In the days and weeks that followed, the image would be stirred into the nation's collective consciousness, a sign of destruction. Though, as with ancient Israel, a destruction limited in scope and duration. And yet, as in the ancient case, the ruined heap would serve as a sign against the nation's sense of invulnerability. America was now vulnerable. The breach had been made, the stones were coming undone, and the nation's security was resting on shaky ground. But the World Trade Center wasn't made out of clay bricks. I countered. The effect, though, was the same. The ancient prophecy opens with the image of a collapse, the ruins of fallen buildings. It was the same image of a collapse and of the ruins of fallen buildings that confronted America in those first dark days following September 11. The American tower fell with the same suddenness as did the clay bricks and buildings of ancient Israel. In a matter of moments, they had become a heap of ruins. And yet the connection was still more liberal. What do you mean? The ruined heap of ground zero was filled with steel, concrete, and glass, but not only that, with what? Bricks. As in the bricks have fallen, the fallen bricks of ancient Israel comprised warning concerning the nation's future. So to the fallen bricks of ground zero, the World Trade Center was a symbol of America's economic power, proud, majestic, towering. But in the matter of moments, it had come crashing down to dust, a warning to even the most proud, majestic, and towering of nations that no nation is invulnerable or exempt from the day that its power comes crashing down to earth, even in a moment's time. The bricks have fallen. It's not just about destruction, it's about a nation's response to destruction, its evolvable defiance. So how did America's reaction to 9/11 compare to that of ancient Israel? Do you remember the days that followed 9/11? He asked. Of course, I answered. No one had to say it. It was as if almost everyone had some sort of sense about it, even if they couldn't put it into words. It was as if the nation had unconsciously heard a silent voice calling it to be still and to return to the foundation. The voice of God? Yes, and for the moment, America appeared to be responding. The rush and clamor of its culture was stilled. Wall Street came to a standstill. Hollywood grew silent. Throughout the nation, there was a noticeable and massive turning away from the superficial and to the spiritual. Even the name of God was taken out of the closet and publicly proclaimed from Capitol Hill to New York City. Multitudes sang God Bless America and gathered for prayer. America's houses of worship overflowed with the throngs of people seeking to find solace.